everybody, welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm in a riverbed and I'm looking all around me and I don't know where I am. So what I'd like to do is share some techniques with you, some ideas of how we can find north. A couple of the things that you might need to use this first technique, which we're going to refer to as the shadow stick technique, is a few pieces of wood. It doesn't have to be pieces of wood, it could be rocks, it could be anything. We're also going to need a stick. But in our case, I'm going to use a little bit longer, bigger stick. So what I want to do is I want to come over here and basically I want to stick my stick down into the ground somewhere where it's going to be fairly solid and where it's not going to move. Right here you can see the shadow that's being cast from the stick. I'm going to take one of my wooden pegs and I'm going to mark the very end of the shadow. So here's a closer look of what I've done. You can see the shadow that's being cast. And you can also see the stick, the little piece of wood that I've poked in the ground at the edge of the shadow. Now this doesn't have to be a stick, it could be rocks or just about anything. You could use soda cans or anything that you have, but you need to mark where the shadow ends. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back about every 10 minutes and we're going to mark the shadow again and again and again. And this is going to help us determine where our directions are: north, south, east, and west. So I'm just waiting for the sun to move a little bit, and it's going to change the shadow that's being cast for the shadow stick technique. But in the meantime, I'm just debarking a little piece of wood here. I'm trying to make the fibers as long as I can because I'm going to use them later to make some cordage. And I'll show you that as well. pretty good. See you in a few minutes. I have a couple sticks here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my last stick in the ground. This, as you can see, creates a line. Okay? So I'm going to take this long stick and I'm going to put it in line with my sticks that I've established. This creates an eastward-westward line. I'm going to take another stick and I'm going to put it perpendicular to 90 degrees from this other stick, and this is going to give me a north-south line. Now you're probably wondering, how do you determine which one's north, which one's south, which one's east, west? How do you determine that? And there's a simple rule of thumb that I like to use. And that rule of thumb is that the first shadow always casts to the west, and the last shadow always casts to the east. And you might be wondering, okay, what exactly does that mean? What exactly are you talking about? I don't understand that terminology. Well, let me break it down for you, okay? I have a little compass here I'm going to set down on the ground. Okay, what that means is in the morning, the sun comes up in the east, and during the day, the sun goes up slightly southward, and it comes down in the west. Well, in the morning, if your sun is here and you have a stick in the ground here, the ray of the sun will hit the stick, and because the sun comes up in the east in the morning, that would mean that the shadow in the morning time would cast to the west of the stick. Okay, now let's change this scenario. Here's the sun again. Here's the stick. The sun comes up. Here's noon. Now 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, afternoon time, right? The sun is in the west. The sun's ray hits the stick and it casts a shadow to the east of the stick. Okay, so with that knowledge, it's the afternoon. The sun is going down over here, which is westward. But if we didn't know that, let's think, okay, first shadow in the west, last shadow in the east. This shadow was the first shadow, which would be west. And this shadow would have been the last shadow, which would be east. So west is this way, east is this way, which would mean north is directly behind me and south is the direction that I'm pointing. Okay? Now I'm going to get up and I'm going to get the camera and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to talk about something else. Okay, let's verify our shadow stick technique with our compass. There's our shadow stick. There's all of our pegs that we put in the ground. Here's our stick and here's our compass. Okay, so if I take this stick and look at this archway, this is obviously pointed to the north up here. This behind where I'm pointing is the south. This is the east and this is the west. Okay, now we're comparing that to a magnetic compass. Now if you notice, there's a slight variance in the difference of what the compass says in relation to what our sticks show. That variance is normal because this compass is based on magnetic north and these shadow techniques are based on true north. Okay, now the variance that you'll find, which could be by a few degrees depending on where you are on the earth, this variance is a normal thing. It's a phenomenon known as magnetic declination. Okay, and it could, like I said, it could vary by several degrees depending on where you are. But with that being said, it still gives us, using the shadow stick technique, it still gives us a very accurate assumption, or I shouldn't use the word assumption, but it gives us a very accurate idea of our bearings and where we are in the world. So now I'm looking at the shadow stick technique, and we now know that this direction is north. Now let's come over here and look at the shadowless stick technique. Let me grab my compass. I'm going to keep the camera pointed north. Here's the shadowless stick technique. Let's verify that again. So we're pretty close. Don't forget that magnetic declination. It does exist, and it's very small, but it does exist. So when you look at the both of them, I should have made them closer to each other, but when you look at the two of them, hopefully you can see this. You can definitely get your bearings. North is straight ahead up this way. You go over here. North is also pointing in the same direction. So again, I want to say thank you everybody for watching my video. Please feel free to comment. Please feel free to subscribe. And you know, I really appreciate all the support that you guys show me. So thanks again, and have a beautiful day everybody. Bye bye now.